3. Terrifying McDonald's horror stories. Story 1. The PlayPlace Part 1. My name is Jasmine, and I was 32 years old when this happened. I'd taken my 5-year-old daughter to a McDonald's in suburban Orlando, Florida, on a Saturday afternoon. It was around 1:15 p.m., and the restaurant was packed with families enjoying lunch. My daughter wanted to play in the PlayPlace, the enclosed playground with tunnels and slides that kept children entertained for hours. I sat at a table near the play area, watching her climb through the colourful tubes. That is when I noticed the man. He was sitting alone, no food in front of him, watching the children play with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Subscribe now and leave a comment below, because what that man was planning still haunts me. Part 2. The McDonald's was one of those large locations with an indoor playground, a favorite destination for parents with young children. On weekends, the PlayPlace was always crowded, filled with screaming kids climbing through tunnels and sliding down plastic slides. My daughter Kayla loved it. Every Saturday after her dance class, she begged to go to McDonald's so she could play with the other children. That Saturday had been typical. We arrived around 1, ordered our food, and found a table near the PlayPlace entrance. Kayla ate half her Happy Meal before abandoning it to join the other kids in the playground. I settled into my seat, with my phone keeping one eye on the play area while scrolling through emails. The PlayPlace had maybe a dozen children inside, ranging from toddlers to kids around 8 or 9. Parents sat at tables throughout the dining area, some watching closely, others absorbed in their phones. I was one of the distracted ones at first. Then I noticed the man. Part 3. He was sitting at a table in the corner near the back of the dining area. He had a clear view of the PlayPlace. No food in front of him, no drink, no phone, just sitting there watching the children play. He was maybe 50, with greying hair and a face that seemed ordinary except for his eyes. They were fixed on the playground with an intensity that seemed wrong. I watched him for a few minutes. His gaze tracked specific children as they moved through the tunnels. When a child emerged from a slide, his head turned to follow them. When a child climbed into the ball pit, he leaned forward slightly. He was not watching the playground in general. He was studying individual children. Part 4. I looked for his children. Maybe he was a grandfather waiting while his grandkids played. But no child approached him. No child waved at him. No child called out to him. He was alone. I pulled Kayla from the PlayPlace. "Mommy, I want to play more." "We need to go, baby, now." She protested, but I held her hand firmly and walked toward the exit. As we passed the man's table, he looked up. Our eyes met. He smiled. Leaving so soon, she was having such a good time in there. I did not respond. I picked up Kayla and walked faster. Behind me, I heard him stand up. Part 5. I pushed through the exit and hurried toward my car. The parking lot was crowded, families coming and going, cars circling for spaces. I glanced back. He was following us, walking slowly, casually, but definitely following. I reached my car and fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking. "Mommy, why are we running?" "Just get in the car, baby, quickly." I strapped Kayla into her car seat and jumped into the driver's seat. Through the window, I could see him standing at the edge of the parking lot, watching us. He pulled out his phone and pointed it at my car. He was taking a picture of my license plate. I started the engine and drove away, my heart pounding. Part 6. I drove straight to the police station. I gave them a description of the man, told them about his behavior, about him following us, about the photograph of my license plate. "Has he done anything illegal?" the officer asked. "He was watching children in a playground. He followed us. He photographed my car." "Those things are suspicious, but not necessarily criminal. We can send an officer to the McDonald's to check it out." They did. By the time they arrived, the man was gone. But they pulled the security footage. It showed him arriving at the McDonald's 2 hours before we did. It showed him sitting at that table, watching the PlayPlace for the entire time. It showed him photographing multiple vehicles in the parking lot as families left. And it showed his face clearly. Part 7. His name was Raymond Earl Pittman, 53 years old, registered sex offender with convictions involving children in 2 states. He was not supposed to be within 500 feet of a playground. The McDonald's PlayPlace violated his restrictions. When they searched his apartment, they found photographs of children from multiple McDonald's locations across Central Florida. He had been visiting PlayPlaces for months, documenting children recording license plates. Cross-referencing the plates with the photographs, he'd been building files on families. Addresses obtained from license plate records. Photographs of children with notes about their appearances. He had been selecting targets. Raymond Pittman was arrested and charged with violation of sex offender restrictions and stalking. The evidence from his apartment added additional charges. Part 8. Raymond Pittman was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The prosecutor said my report had stopped him before he could act on his plans. The files in his apartment showed he was building towards something terrible. I think about that afternoon constantly. The man watching the children. His smile when our eyes met. The photograph of my license plate. If I had not noticed him, if I had let Kayla keep playing, if I had not gone to the police, he would have our address. He would have photographs of my daughter. He would know where to find us. I do not take Kayla to McDonald's PlayPlaces anymore. When we go to playgrounds, I watch every adult who enters. I notice anyone who seems too interested in the children. If you take your children to play areas, please pay attention. Watch for adults who seem out of place. Notice anyone who watches children with too much intensity. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, because predators hunt where children gather, and they count on parents being distracted. Story 2. The Drive-thru Part 1. My name is Deshawn, and I was 20 years old when this happened. I worked the evening shift at a McDonald's in rural Georgia, about 40 miles south of Atlanta. It was a Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m., and the dinner rush had died down to a trickle of customers. I was alone at the drive-thru window while my co-workers handled the front counter and kitchen. A car pulled up to place an order. The voice was calm, polite, nothing unusual. But when the car reached my window, the driver did not reach for his wallet. He reached for something else, something that glinted in the fluorescent light from inside the restaurant. Subscribe now and leave a comment. Because what happened in the next 5 minutes almost cost me my life. Part 2. The McDonald's where I worked was on a quiet highway between 2 small towns. During the day we served a steady stream of travelers and locals. At night, things slowed down considerably. By 9 p.m., On a Wednesday, we might see a car every 10 or 15 minutes. The drive-thru line, which stretched around the building during lunch, was usually empty. I had been working there for about a year. The job was fine. Regular hours, predictable routine co-workers who made the shifts bearable. That Wednesday, I was stationed at the drive-thru window. My co-worker Terrell was in the kitchen, and my manager Patricia was handling the occasional customer at the front counter. Around 9:30, a car pulled up to the speaker. "Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get for you tonight?" "I would like a Big Mac combo medium with a Coke." The voice was male calm, nothing remarkable. "Anything else?" "No, that will be all." I entered the order and gave him the total. "Pull around to the first window." Part 3. The car that appeared was a dark sedan, maybe 10 years old. The kind of vehicle that blends into any parking lot. The driver was maybe 40, with a thin face and eyes that seemed too alert in the dim evening light. "That'll be $8.47, I said. He reached toward me, but his hand was not holding money. It was holding a knife. "Open the register, now!" I backed away from the window. "I'm going to scream. There are other employees here." "You scream and I will gut you before anyone can help. Open the register, put the money in a bag, hand it through the window." His voice was calm, patient, like he had done this before. Part 4. My hand moved towards the register, operating on autopilot. Slowly, no sudden movements. I pressed the button to open the drawer. It beeped and slid open. Maybe $200 inside. Not much for a robbery, but enough to get someone killed. I grabbed a paper bag and started transferring the bills. All of it. The coins, too. I scooped out the coins, my hands shaking. "Now hand it through the window, slowly." I extended the bag toward him. He reached for it. With his free hand, the knife still pointed at my chest. Then Terrell walked up behind me. "Deshaun Patricia needs you too." He saw the knife. He saw my face. The man's eyes shifted to Terrell. I threw the bag of money in his face and ducked. Part 5. The coins scattered everywhere, pinging off the window frame and the car's interior. The man cursed and swiped at me with the knife, but I was already on the floor. Terrell grabbed the fire extinguisher from the wall and aimed it through the window. A blast of white foam erupted into the car. The man screamed, blinded by the chemicals. I heard gears grinding. The car lurched forward, tires squealing. By the time I got to my feet, the sedan was tearing out of the parking lot, disappearing into the dark Georgia night. Patricia was already on the phone with 911. "There has been a robbery. McDonald's on Highway 19. The suspect is in a dark sedan heading north." Part 6. The police arrived within 15 minutes. They took our statements, collected the scattered coins as evidence, and reviewed the security footage. The drive-thru camera had captured his face clearly. So had the camera above the window. They also captured his license plate as he fled. The car was registered to a man named Warren Douglas Hutchins, 44 years old. He had a history of armed robbery across 3 states. He had served time twice and been released twice. Some of his previous robberies had not ended peacefully. One fast food worker had been stabbed when they could not open the register fast enough. Another had been hurt when they tried to fight back. I had been lucky. Terrell, arriving at exactly the right moment, had given me the chance I needed. Part 7. They caught him 2 hours later at a gas station about 50 miles north. He was still covered in residue from the fire extinguisher white powder in his hair and on his clothes. The knife was on the seat beside him. Warren Hutchins was charged with armed robbery assault with a deadly weapon and fleeing the scene of a crime. Given his prior convictions, he faced enhanced sentencing. He was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. At his sentencing, the prosecutor mentioned that his previous victims had not been as fortunate as me. The worker who'd been stabbed had spent 3 weeks in the hospital. I had gotten lucky. Terrell had arrived at exactly the right moment. The fire extinguisher had been within reach. Everything had lined up perfectly for me to survive. Part 8. I quit my job at McDonald's a month after they arrested him. I could not work the drive-thru window anymore. Every time a car pulled up, I tensed. Every time someone reached toward me, I flinched. The company changed their policies after what happened. Plexiglass barriers at drive-thru windows, panic buttons that connect directly to police dispatch, limits on how much cash could be kept in the registers. But none of that erases what almost happened. I was alone at that window with a man who had hurt people before. The only things that saved me were a co-worker's timing and a fire extinguisher. If you work a drive-thru window, please be careful. Pay attention to customers who seem off. Know where the panic buttons are. Never assume that being at work means being safe, because predators target people who work alone. And they count on you being trapped behind that window. Story 3. The Closing Shift, Part 1. My name is Alia, and I was 21 years old when this happened. I worked the closing shift at a McDonald's in suburban Memphis, Tennessee. It was a Thursday night, 11:45 p.m., and the restaurant had been closed for 15 minutes. I was alone in the storage room at the back of the building, taking inventory, before we could finish closing. The room was cramped, lined with shelves stacked with boxes of supplies. Everything seemed normal until I heard the door open behind me. The door I had locked. I turned around and saw a man standing in the doorway. He was not an employee, and he was holding a gun. Subscribe now, because what happened in the next 20 minutes almost cost me my life. Part 2. The McDonald's where I worked was in a busy commercial area, surrounded by gas stations and fast food restaurants. During the day it was chaos. Hundreds of customers, long lines, constant activity. At night, things were different. We closed at 11. By 11:30, most employees had gone home. The closing manager and one other person would stay to finish cleaning, count the registers, and prepare the deposit for the morning. That Thursday, I was the closing manager. My only remaining employee, Marcus, was in the kitchen finishing the cleaning checklist. I was in the storage room counting boxes of supplies for the weekly inventory report. The storage room was at the very back of the building, past the kitchen and the walk-in freezer. It had one door and no windows. I had locked the back entrance when the last employee left at 11:15. Standard procedure. But when I heard the door open behind me, I knew something was wrong. I turned around. A man was standing in the doorway. Part 3. He was maybe 45, with a weathered face and eyes that showed no emotion. He was holding a gun. Do not scream, do not run, do exactly what I say and no one gets hurt. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. What do you want? The money? The safe, the deposit bag, everything. Okay, I can give you everything. Just stay calm. You stay calm. Where is the safe? In the office? I will take you there. He gestured with the gun. Move slowly. I walked past him through the storage room door into the kitchen. Marcus was at the sink, his back to us, washing dishes. The man saw him. You. Turn around. Hands where I can see them. Part 4. Marcus turned slowly, his eyes going wide when he saw the gun. Get on the ground, face down, hands behind your head. Marcus complied, lowering himself to the kitchen floor. The man looked at me. Now the safe. Move. I led him to the manager's office, a small room off the main hallway. The safe was a floor model, hidden under the desk. Open it. I knelt and entered the combination. My hands were shaking so badly I had to try twice. The safe clicked open. Inside was the deposit bag, maybe $3,000 from the day's sales. He grabbed the bag and stuffed it inside his jacket. Now the registers. They have already been counted down. There is maybe $50 in each one. Then we'll get that too. Part 5. He marched me back to the front of the restaurant. I opened both registers and emptied the remaining cash into a paper bag. That is everything, I said. That is all the money in the building. He looked at me for a long moment. You have seen my face. I will not tell anyone, I swear. Just take the money and go. Everyone says that. He raised the gun. The front door rattled. Someone was outside pulling on the locked door. A customer probably hoping we were still open. The man's eyes shifted to the door. I grabbed the hot coffee pot from the warmer and swung it at his hand. Part 6. The pot connected with his wrist. He screamed and dropped the gun. It clattered across the tile floor, spinning toward the counter. I dove for it. He tackled me before I could reach it, his weight driving the air from my lungs. We struggled on the floor, both reaching for the weapon. My fingers closed around the grip just as his hand grabbed my arm. I twisted, pointing the gun at his chest. Get off me, he froze. Get off me, or I will shoot. Slowly, he released my arm and raised his hands. Okay, just stay calm. I said, get off. He rolled away from me, his hands still raised. The person at the door was pounding now, having heard the commotion. Call 911, I screamed. Someone call the police. Part 7. The police arrived within 8 minutes. The man had not tried to run. He sat on the floor with his hands raised, watching me hold the gun on him with steady hands. His name was Douglas Ray Patterson, 47 years old. He had a history of armed robbery spanning 5 states. 2 of our previous robberies had ended in violence. A gas station attendant had been shot. A convenience store clerk had been pistol whipped. The prosecutor said I was lucky to be alive. Douglas Patterson was charged with armed robbery assault and illegal possession of a firearm. Given his history, he faced life in prison. He was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life without parole. Part 8. I quit my job at McDonald's the week after they arrested him. I could not work closing shifts anymore. Every sound made me jump. Every time someone entered the building, I tensed. The company changed their policies after what happened. 2 managers on every closing shift. Panic buttons throughout the building. Better locks on the back doors. Cameras that security monitors in real time. But none of that erases what almost happened. I was alone in that restaurant with a man who had hurt people before. The only things that saved me were a customer at the door and a pot of coffee. If the customer had not appeared, if the coffee pot had not been within reach, if I had not grabbed the gun before he could recover, I would be dead. If you work closing shifts, please be careful. Never work alone. Check the locks. Know where the weapons are, even improvised ones. Have a plan for emergencies, because predators target people who work late, and they count on no one being there to help. The end. If these stories scared you, leave a comment below and tell me which one was the most terrifying. And remember, whether you're a parent at a PlayPlace, a worker at a drive-thru window, or an employee closing up late at night, always pay attention to your surroundings. Watch the people who watch you. Check the locks before you start your closing routine. And never assume you are safe just because you are at work. Because predators hunt in familiar places, and they are waiting for you to let your guard down.